Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, this is going to stun you, but the SNP, in their continual war on motorists, are attempting to bring in a new rule, a new law, in fact. And it's turned out that they've introduced this, and the one thing they haven't done is think about it. Startling, isn't it? They haven't worked out the implications of what they were trying to bring in. They haven't worked out even if they can bring it in. It turns out that it's virtually unenforceable in most areas. It's been suggested that, for example, in the Orkneys, in order to enforce this law, they're going to fly people in from Aberdeen on a daily basis to enforce it. And even then, most councils all around and regions all around Scotland don't even have the legal ability to impose this on drivers. You couldn't make this up because nobody has got an imagination that amazing that they'd even think this was a thing. Let's have a look and see how this latest wheeze is just so typically dim of the SNP. Here goes. Now, they're describing this as a shambles, another SNP shambles, as pavement parking ban can't be enforced in many areas. It's absolutely ridiculous. How they've sat there and gone, yes, we've got a brilliant idea. Shall we think about it and work out what the implications are? No, let's not waste our time doing that. Let's just bring it in because we know it'll be like everything else we do. Brilliant. And everyone will think it's just the best thing ever. And we don't have to worry about things like details. They'll take care of themselves. They always do, don't they? And this is, of course, why everything the SNP touches turns into an absolute shambles. The latest front in the SNP Green's war on motorists comes into force on Monday, when parking on the pavement is banned. Well, there we go. But many councils cannot enforce it, and most are not yet ready anyway. And wait until you see what's going on. It is, yet again, it's typical. Nobody watching these videos, nobody watching my channel regularly, is in any way surprised that this is another DOA example of a stupid rule brought in by morons incapable of foreseeing any kind of consequences or even working out if what they're bringing in is in any way feasible. This is what happens when you let the children rule, isn't it? The morons. Honestly, the lunatics truly are running the asylum. Anyway, a flaw in Scotland's new ban on pavement parking, due to be introduced on Monday, has paved the way for flying traffic wardens. And we quite literally mean flying. Councils will receive the power to slap £100 fines on motorists who bump their vehicles up onto the pavement. Now, do they mean up onto the pavement fully, or do they mean just wheels up on the curb? Who knows? But it can be revealed that a third of Scotland's 32 councils do not have the decriminalised parking enforcement powers deemed necessary to enforce the ban. And if yours doesn't and you do it and they try slapping a £100 fine on you, you just hand it back to them and go, no, you don't have the authority to issue that. It has been criticised as part of the SNP's war on motorists because they absolutely hate cars. Although, I don't know how you're going to get around most of Scotland because the buses are shit and the trains don't exist in most places. They expect you to ride your bicycle up and down the Highlands. Crikey. Like to see Hamza Yousaf do that. To help them enforce it, the new Transport Scotland Act 2019 allows councils without the powers to borrow traffic wardens from neighbouring local authorities who do. Hey? Think about this. We don't have the legal authority to do this, but next door does, so we'll borrow one of their traffic wardens to come into our place and slap these fines on. It won't work. It only takes one test case, doesn't it? It takes one test case because all it takes is one person to show that although the traffic warden is employed by another authority, he is working on behalf of and therefore an agent of the authority in the area in which he is working, and therefore does not any longer have the authority. One test case. Anyone can see this. It's not me, is it? It's not me. These people truly are that stupid, aren't they? Anyway, a spokesman said, sorry, we haven't got there. We'll come to that. This next bit, honestly, steel yourself. Put your knickers up, you're going to need this. To help them enforce it, right? As we say, they'll bring these traffic wardens who do. Now, Orkney Council, listen to this, Orkney Council scoffed at the idea of flying in traffic wardens from Aberdeen to it. Do you know how many people live in Orkney? There ain't many, is there? Do you know what the parking problems are in Orkney? I suspect not very much of a problem. And yet they expect, Orkney Council will expect the taxpayers of Orkney to pay to fly in an Aberdeen parking enforcement officer on a daily basis to come into Orkney to slap tickets on the 4 cars that are likely to be up on the pavement in Orkney. Is it Orkney that's got a place called Twat? I'll leave that one there. Anyway, a spokesman said no conversations have been had with other local authorities in Scotland. However, the geographical and logistical challenges associated with sharing staff, together with the significant resource pressures being experienced by all councils, they don't have the manpower for this, mean that this is going to be extremely unlikely to be feasible. In other words, we just don't have the ability to enforce it, even if we did have the legal right. And a third of councils don't even have the legal right. It's a joke. Anyway, 4 years after the legislation received royal assent, the Scottish Government say that Scotland will finally be the first UK nation to introduce a ban on the practice which endangers pedestrians. Now, I'm going to be honest and say, I agree with it. I actually agree with the principle that pavements are for people and roads are for cars. And one of the things, I live very close to a school, and when it's school going out time, all the cars pull up and they all bounce onto the pavement. I've seen women with pushchairs forced to walk their children in pushchairs into the road because these wanker parkers have come up. And I don't just mean bumped up onto the curb. If it was just the wheel on the curb, it wouldn't be a problem. You've still got enough pathway to get through. These guys are halfway across the path. You can't. I say to the women, what they need to do is just get those pushchairs and just push it through. And if they scratch the shit out of these cars, so be it. I don't care. So my principle, I'm standing on the principle, I actually agree with not parking on the pavement, as long as you can maybe allow curb parking, because some roads are a bit thin, and you do need to avoid sort of the double parking problems. I get that. But, yes, I agree, not parking fully on a pavement. I'm quite with it. But the fact is that they're saying now that they've brought this law in without fully thinking it through, without ensuring that every council has the ability to enforce it, which means you drive around, you don't know one council can do it, another council can't. That leads to confusion. That leads to a dissimilar rules and laws in simply because you're in a different county. You can do it here, you can't do it there. And yet it's supposed to be a Scotland Act. But how can you have an act that affects all people, but only piecemeal? It's just really badly designed law. This is what I'm getting at. I'm not against the ban, but it's the lack of thought that's gone into it, which is typical of the SNP. You can't be enforced anyway. The council haven't got the people, their manpower. You've got this patchwork attempt at that because they haven't given everyone the right powers to do it. Then you haven't defined what pavement is, because there's no definition. It just says on the pavement. But some places are shared usage, and sometimes you have pavements where there is no uplift onto the road and things like that. It's almost impossible to define these things. They're not defining that in the law. The first challenge is going to destroy it if it's a council that doesn't have the power. There's all these things. This is another example. It's a typical example of the SNP rushing a law out, thinking they're being brilliant, thinking they're being virtuous, and giving it absolutely no thought whatsoever. Is it going to fail? Oh God, it's so shit, isn't it? Why is the SNP filled with absolute morons? And there we are. And that's basically it. So what I've got here is the pavement parking table. I'm just going to put this up. I'm not going to go through it. I'll leave it up. That's in the top half. You can always pause it, expand and have a look. So there's the various different areas, cities, regions there. And that's Aberdeen through to Glasgow that you'll see on the screen. And then I've got from Glasgow through to West Lothian. And you can see, again, what they are. And a lot of them just don't have the powers or will not introduce yet, or have the powers they intend to introduce, but they're not saying when. They are not unclear as to when. Some don't know if they can even afford it. Some don't really want to do it. Some say there's no need to do it, and things like that. Again, an SNP rule brought in, or an SNP law brought in, and zero thought given. Stop voting for morons, please. I'm coming up. Scotland seems to be a country run by the thickest, most stupidest, retarded fuckwits God ever put life into. It's almost as though if you want to progress in politics in Scotland, you actually have to have a frontal lobotomy. Because anyone of any intelligence, with any kind of reasoning powers, anyone with any kind of logical thought, anyone with more than a passable mention of foresight and consequence would be, disbarred from becoming a politician, it seems. Look at you, old clever brains. You can't be a politician. You can only be a politician if you are an absolute fucking retard. It seems to be the Scottish way, doesn't it? Or certainly the SNP way. It is just a joke. And everything they do falls apart and turns to shit the moment they try to implement it. Because they are lunatics. Anyway, it's amusing. I sit on the outside. I'm sorry for you fellas who live there. You guys living there must... I only visit. I don't have to put up with it. A few days here, a week there, whatever. To live there full time, I just cannot imagine the horror. You couldn't make this up. You literally couldn't make this up, could you? We'll bring in a rule. It only applies in certain places because we haven't given everywhere the right amount of legal powers. It won't all come in at once because we haven't insisted that it does. We know it's unenforceable because we've kept the council so poor for years they can't afford the bloody people to go around and check it. But we're going to make it law because we're the SNP and we're brilliant at everything. Oh well, I'll stop now. Unbelievable. Move on for the next video. It's stunning though, isn't it? Anyway, take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.